Hello, good evening, students. Welcome to Byju's. Welcome to yet another weekly current affairs session that we are coming together. We are now, I think it's been a long while since we've come face to face again. So I'm glad that we are doing this on this very new platform also. So, in the beginning, before we go into the session, first of all, I'm very happy that all of you have got onto the app and have tried accessing the session. So I need to tell you a few things even in the coming days when it comes to using your Byju's exam prep app. There are a few instructions related to it. First, we'll go through the instructions in a quiet bit and then we'll move on to the session. First things first, see, if you have to access to the Byju's exam prep IAS, what you have to do is put in your mobile number, or you can do it with your Google ID also, and there you have to click on IAS. So the course that you have to select is IAS. Once that is selected, you will be getting, or you will be coming to a screen which is something of this sort. Now, in the screen, what you are going to visit or you are going to see is that you're going to have, if you belong to the tablet learning program, you're going to have a screen which is going to have home, practice, and test series at the bottom. If you belong to the BHLP or the online classroom program, you're going to have a screen which is going to be somewhat like your home, practice, test series, and my classroom. So the idea is, based on what program you have enrolled for, you will be receiving these separate kinds of home screens. Now, if you are belonging to the tablet learning program and you want to access the webinar or the session that is there on that particular day, when you open your app itself on the front home screen, that day's session will be visible. If you belong to the online classroom program, you have to go to this My Classroom specific icon which is there. Once you go over there, then it will be visible to you. Okay, so now one other instruction that I have before we go into the thing is that, see, the ideal way to use this app is because this is like a one-stop solution. Normally when we study also we use that word, right? One-stop solution. Every single product that you have enrolled for, be it the videos, be it your webinars, be it the YouTube videos, whatever is happening is going to be at this single one-stop app. And that is the beauty of it. So I hope even in the coming days, all of you would be using this app in a very good manner. Now, on to that, one more thing that I have to tell you is those who are attending both the MTS discussions also. So our MTS discussions will still be on Zoom. Only your current affair discussions will be there on the Byju's exam prep app. So I hope we've got all those instructions clear. Once again, I'm very happy to be meeting all of you. So we are going into the session. Some of the topics that I have kept over here for our study today, the purpose of our study today is, I would say these are very interesting topics because these are topics that are constantly being in news in the last 1 or 2 weeks. But most of us who read the newspaper do not have a complete picture about it. You either know some bits or pieces, or you are like, okay, fine, I am just going to wait till some classes they're going to happen for it. The first topic is Title 9 and its impacts. Again, this becomes important because you must have seen in US there was something called as the Roe versus Wade judgment. How many of you are aware of this? How many of you have been following news regarding this? If you have been following news, you can give a thumbs up in the chat, so I will be knowing that, okay, that you are aware of this Roe versus Wade judgment. Very recently, this Roe versus Wade judgment in the US was overturned. Okay, so when the judgment got overturned, that means it was a previous judgment which granted abortion rights to the women. That judgment got overturned. At this point, a lot of discussion has started happening as to how the other judgments and other laws which are there in the US are either progressive or are regressive. And this is what we would be discussing in this first topic, which is your Title 9 and its impacts. The next topic again is from an IR perspective. It basically marks the 25 years of Hong Kong's return to China. Now, we must be thinking, why is it so important for us? This is what we are going to explore in the topic. What is the relevance of this? What exactly is the history of the relation between Hong Kong and China? Because this is a very confusing area. I know for a fact that a lot of students, they'll be like, China is there, Hong Kong is there. We do not know what is the exact relation between them, but we know there is some relation. And that is what we will be studying in that second topic. The third topic again is ISRO's poem platform. Though it sounds very poetic, what we have to study over here is a little bit technical thing. So I took up this topic because I want to make it very simple for you. I know it's a science and tech topic. I want to make it so simple that even if somebody asks, even if you're not from a non-science background, you should be able to know that topic. The last topic, the last two topics which are there, one is the UN Ocean Conference, which is there, which is important from an environment perspective. And finally, you have the topic of internet shutdowns. Again, those who are following news would probably know why this is important. Internet shutdowns become important. Why? Because even in the recent case of Rajasthan, previously in the case of Jammu and Kashmir, there have been instances of internet shutdowns, and we have to explore that. So are you all excited for today's session? I am very excited, I can tell you that. So I hope we can go forward and carry that excitement throughout the session. The first topic, Title 9 and its impacts. Okay, let's get to the crux of it. Basically, Title 9 is a law. Okay, Title 9 is a law followed in United States of America. So that part is clear. So Title 9 and United States of America. Very recently, this law is celebrating its 50th anniversary. Okay, now when this law is celebrating its 50th anniversary, so we know that this law had come at the time of Richard Nixon. There was a US president called Richard Nixon, and at that moment, at that tenure when he was the president, there was something called as the feminist waves. Okay, what are the feminist waves? How many of you are aware of the feminist waves that happening? This is not the wave that you see right now. In the earlier time, there was something called as the first wave of feminism, second wave of feminism, basically meaning that each time the different rights that the women asked for was different. In the second wave of feminism, which was dealt by prominent thinkers like Gloria Steinem and so on, prominent, feminists like Gloria Steinem, they said that you should ensure that sexual harassment at campuses, at schools, at educational institutions should not happen. That is the first thing. The second thing, they said that you should try to achieve gender equity in any of the field that the state is funding. For example, if the state is funding athletics, then there should be gender equity. If the state is funding education, then there should be gender equity. This was the idea of Title 9. And very gladly, very fortunately, during the time of Richard Nixon, this Title 9 got passed. Okay, so now we have to explore what exactly this Title 9 is. And I must personally say, this one line of the Title 9 that I'm going to read to you right now is the most, what I can say as the most comprehensive law that you will ever find. Let's go through it. No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity that is receiving federal financial assistance. It's very crystal clear. What all? On the basis of sex, you cannot be denied any participation, you cannot be discriminated, you cannot be harassed. Such a beautiful law that they have made over there. It's in a very comprehensive manner. So by this, it is understood that because this idea of federal financial assistance has come for any field where the government is supporting them, supporting the educational activities, this will come under the ambit of Title 9. Okay, now coming over here, it covers most of the K-12 schools. K-12 means in your standards, which are the smaller classes up to your 12th grade. It covers colleges, it covers universities, it also covers vocational schools, libraries, and museums. These all fall under educational institutions when it comes to USA, and all this is covered. And one more point, it is not just the students who are covered. If you are an educator, if you are a staff of any of these institutions, even then you are also covered by it. Which means if I'm a teacher in any of these schools, I cannot be just discriminated on the basis of my sex. Understand? Now, so this law in the long run, it has been used, or the widespread use of it has been seen in the case of athletics, in the case of classroom academics, any case of sexual assault and violence which is there, any case of employment which is there, any case of discrimination, admissions, any financial assistance given. For example, there would be some colleges where they might give financial assistance to men only. That is not possible. Now, what is the bigger impact of this? Why do you think this becomes so important right now in this world? When a law says you cannot be discriminated on sex, it just doesn't include man and woman. It will include the LGBTQIA plus community. This is the importance of it. Why? Because at the time of the Obama presidency, you all are aware of Barack Obama, right? The US president. So at the time of Obama presidency, he did something very revolutionary. What he said is, as per the Title 9, students who identify themselves as transgender or queer or any of these different categories are free to use whatever washrooms that they want in the campus. It's a small thing, right? Normally in every school you have the washrooms or the bathrooms for male and female. So now, based on the gender, whatever they identify as, they are free to use any of these restrooms. It was very controversial because a lot of people felt that by allowing this, the US president has actually infringed on their right to privacy. Understand? Actually, what was tried to be put into action is the fact that he tried bringing about taking the Title 9 and saying that as per the Title 9, everybody should be treated in an equal manner, which means even transgender people should be treated in a very gender neutral manner. So this was very controversial then. Now again, it is becoming controversial. Why? Because at the time of Obama presidency, it was put into action. When the Trump presidency came over, they removed it. Now again, when Joe Biden, who is a Democrat, is back in power, he is trying to bring back the reforms with relation to Title 9. This is again why this is important. Now you all must be thinking, why is it so important? By, when we talk from the Indian perspective, we will come to it. Okay, we will come to as to why this is important from the Indian perspective. As of now, just a brief overview of things. First thing, some things that you have to know about Title 9. Title 9 is a civil right that prohibits sex discrimination. It applies to all students regardless of their gender identity. If anybody files a complaint against, for example, if I have undergone any bad experience, any sexual assault, and I have complained to the school authorities, then you must keep the person who's complaining, they have to be kept safe. Because obviously there will be some kind of a threat against their life or their bodily autonomy or something. So they have to be kept safe. The next thing is that the school should ensure, and this is very, very important, guys, the school should ensure that the person who has suffered the abuse should not share the campus with the abuser. Because if I have undergone some kind of a bad experience and I have to share the same space with the abuser, then what is going to happen? I will constantly be traumatized by the presence of that person. I will constantly be in a very uncomfortable way. So the idea is you have to make the person, the victim, in a very comfortable way. So the abuser should be thrown out of the campus. The next things, school must be proactive in ensuring that your campus is free from sex discrimination. Schools must have a procedure for handling complaints of sexual harassment. Schools can issue no contact directives to prevent alleged perpetration. So what happens is, if anybody is complaining about someone, they have to clearly give an idea that, okay, whoever is the abuser, you please do not contact or do not try to influence the person that you have abused. All schools receiving federal funding, including your private colleges and schools and all, will come under part of Title 9. And one last thing over here, the schools cannot discourage you from continuing your education. Most of the times, this is why I'm hoping slowly you're trying to understand how this law is so progressive when compared to the Indian laws that we have. When it comes to the Indian laws, you do see that in most of the cases, the very act of even proving the innocence of the victim becomes a serious law procedure. Here, absolute protection is given to the victim. Now, one point I want to add over here is, apart from all this, not only sexual harassment, domestic violence that happens on campus grounds. For example, you might have some residential schools, residential colleges, and so on, right? So in those cases, maybe domestic violence, dating violence. This is a new term. Dating violence means that in the process of having a casual relationship, if there is some sort of a physical assault happening, even that gets covered under Title 9. So how many of you think this is something so progressive and we have to have some sort of a law like this? Especially when I talk about the impact of the law, you will understand it even further. One of the first things is on athletics. In the case of athletics, you must have seen in the earlier times, there used to be separate, totally different rules and laws for men, games that involved men and games that involved women. And at times, women were not even allowed to participate in certain athletics. So as per Title 9, there has been granted gender equity in athletics. Now, when I'm saying equity, why am I using equity and not equality here? Can anyone tell me why am I using equity and not equality here? Okay, so here equity, I am looking at your responses. See, the reason why I'm using equity is because the idea is not that, okay, you have men's football and you have women's football. The idea is you do not give, okay, just by saying that, okay, 10 footballs are given to the men's football team, that same 10 footballs should be given to the women's football team. See, that is a output that is there. The idea is that maybe the women's football team needs improvements on a much more higher level to be on par with the men's football team. So this is what you mean by equity. Okay, so you have to ensure equity when it comes to athletics. Next, coming to your sexual harassment, we have discussed all the cases where it comes to sexual harassment. Any aspect when you are abused in your school campuses, when you are abused on the campus, the residential campuses, or on the otherwise campuses also, this will fall under your Title 9. And on gender discrimination. Gender discrimination means, for example, you must have seen in certain corporates and all that, when women get pregnant, they will be asked to move out of the job. Now, if that organization is funded by the US government, then that pregnant woman can raise a court case as per Title 9. Why? Because she was discriminated based on her gender. Okay, so now, yeah, there are a lot of questions as to how Title 9 is going to impact on India. See, Title 9 is already there. It has been there for 50 years. Now, think for a perspective and tell me, what exactly would our takeaway be from Title 9? Think about it. See, right now, there is a lot of discussion happening between Indian laws versus global laws. Why is there discussion? And this is in that context, I have to talk about Roe versus Wade. Okay. How many of you know what Roe versus Wade is? Yes, yes. There are a lot of people. There are a lot of people who know Roe versus Wade. I am going to tell you, if those who do not know, see, Roe versus Wade basically gave the right of abortion to the female or to the woman who is concerned. So in USA, you had a law which said that if the woman concerned felt that she needed an abortion, as per this judgment, she was free to go and get it. But very recently, the Roe versus Wade judgment was overturned by a bigger Supreme Court judge, bigger Supreme Court bench in USA. Which means what? Now, in USA, if a woman wants to have abortion, in the first place, abortion is made illegal in a lot of states of USA. If at all she wants also, there is an entire set of procedures that she has to go through. At this point, we in India, we were going on saying, see, we have much better laws. We have Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. It is a very progressive act. Actually, in comparison to the Roe versus Wade, which actually made abortion illegal, our law is actually progressive. It has not made abortion illegal. But when you compare it on a minute level, in India also, the law that we have is very difficult to actually put into practice. Why? Because in India, only in very specific cases can a woman go and get an abortion. The fetus should have some genetic abnormalities. The fetus should have been born out of a rape or a sexual assault. If in any of these cases, there are 4 or 5 cases given, if in any of those cases it satisfies, then only the woman can get an abortion. And even then, it is not as easy as going and getting an abortion. What has to be done is the claims of the woman have to be justified or verified by a medical practitioner. A regulated medical practitioner has to verify that, okay, whatever this person is saying is all right. Now you can go forward for the abortion. If a medical practitioner is not there, then a medical board has to come forward and actually validate the claims of the woman. Now, do you think it is that easy in India when it comes to considering all the social stigma that is there, and you have so many barriers, even though we can clearly say, okay, we are progressive than America when it comes to this, are we actually progressive? What do you guys think? No, this is not. So I see a lot of responses which says, no, it is not progressive. It is in this context, guys, because we are constantly comparing our law with the US laws, and we are trying to make ourselves feel like, okay, we are doing better. It is in that point, this Title 9 is important. Now, Title 9 basically protects the victim in a full-fledged manner. In any case of sexual assault, actually the onus is upon the abuser to prove that, okay, if he's innocent or not. It is not on the victim. But in the case of India, even though we have laws, we see that when it is put into practice, because we do not have a very strict law like Title 9, in most of the cases, you will see that the abuser can walk scot-free, because the onus of actually saying that, onus means the liability, okay, the actual need to prove that, okay, I have been abused, I have been sexually harassed, it falls on the victim over here. We have very good laws. For example, some of the Indian equivalents are the Prevention of Sexual Harassment at Workplace, or the POSH Act 2013. How many of you have heard about this? Yes, some of you have heard about it. So yes, I can see all the responses here. I can see you've heard about it. See, in this act, it is being said that any unwelcome sexually defined behavior which has the purpose or effect of unreasonably interfering with the individual's work performance or creating an intimidating, hostile, abusive, or offensive working environment will fall under your POSH Act. The POSH Act came about from a Supreme Court judgment which gave about the Vishaka guidelines. So there was a specific case. In the specific case, there was Vishaka guidelines given. Based on the Vishaka guidelines, which actually protected not only women, any category of person from sexual harassment at workplace. You had the POSH Act. So this is at workplace. Then you have the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act. Okay, so you have the POXO Act, which says that if a child is getting abused or raped or any of these activities, the person concerned will be tried under the POXO Act. This is also a strong law. But then what is the problem of POXO in India? The problem of POXO in India is that most of the time, this entire law, this entire setup, it gets muffled. What is muffled? The claims of the victim do not come to a formal body which is there. And this is where Title 9 is important. In the case of Title 9, if there is any complaint raised against someone, there is a specific Title 9 officer which will be there in most of the educational institutions who will be taking care of this kind of an abuse. In India, when there is a case of an abuse like this, if it is a child involved or a woman involved or a transgender person involved, the first thing that happens is they will have to go to the police to complain. Now, when they go to the police to complain, though in the POSH Act you have an internal complaints committee and all that, when you actually want a punishment done, when you go to the police over here, what happens is most of the cases, they try to solve the case over there, compromise and go back, thereby making the actual victim or the actual abuser still out on the loose. This is a huge drawback. Okay, even then, what happens is whenever it comes to certain aspects, it will become the liability of the victim to prove that, okay, this has happened to me. Because of all this itself, we can learn a lot of aspects from Title 9. And this, my friends, is the impact of Title 9 on India. Same like how Roe versus Wade had an impact on India, the impact of Title 9 is that we need to step up our laws to maintain global standards. Okay, now apart from that, we have certain schemes like Ujjwala scheme to prevent the rescue and to prevent, rescue, reintegrate and repatriate victims of sexual exploitation. We have all these things, but the fact is all these things should be integrated under a very strong law like your Title 9. Okay, so I hope that is clear to all of you. Is this topic clear to all of you? If yes, you can put that smiley which is there, which says that, okay, yeah. Jairam has asked about the Ujjwala Act. Ujjwala is not an act, Jairam. Ujjwala is basically a scheme that is there for victims of commercial sexual exploitation. You must have seen a lot of women and children get trafficked for sex trade and so on. When they are rescued from there, Ujjwala is a scheme to rehabilitate them. Okay, so now we are coming to the poll time over here. Fiza has asked how to remember these acts. See, Fiza, in the course of UPSC preparation, these are the acts that you're going to constantly keep hearing again and again. So don't worry. POXO, your Vishakha guidelines, your POSH Act, everything you will be constantly hearing. By the time you go to write your mains, this will be like like these poems that we study in our small classes which are there. So now it's time for our polls. Okay, the question that I put over here is regarding Title 9. Let's go through the question. With reference to Title 9 recently seen in the news, consider the following statements. Title 9 is a law which promotes gender equity in athletics and prevents sexual harassment at campuses. Under this law, domestic violence is not covered as a category of sexual harassment at campuses. Under this law, there is no explicit provision to prevent discrimination against the LGBTQ communities. Which of this following statements? So think very nicely, very carefully. Remember that this is a very progressive act which is there, and you have the 4 options. I will launch the poll right now. So You can start marking your answers. Are you all marking the answers? There's nothing going wrong. Paloma has asked me what is going wrong. Paloma and Sunita and all. Mark the answers, guys. There's nothing going wrong. I want you all to mark the poll answers. That is what is happening right now. Okay, so I can see a lot of you have marked the answers. Now I'll just say, see, so these three options are given over here. Let's try exploring the question. So a lot of you have marked one option over here, one only, but look at the statements over here. Title 9 is a law, or Title 9 is a law that promotes gender equity. That is a correct statement which you all have marked. Under this law, domestic violence is not covered as a category of sexual harassment at campuses. Again, that is what you can say. That is a wrong statement. Coming to the third statement, under this law, there is no explicit provision to prevent discrimination against LGBTQ communities. Guys, the entire law is the idea that you cannot discriminate people based on the gender. And I saw a lot of people asking, what is LGBTQ? LGBTQ is L for lesbian, G for gay, B for bisexual, T for trans, Q is for queer, A is for asexual, and plus is for any other gender identities that are beyond this. For those who are not aware of this, apart from the ideas of male and female, there are a lot of other gender identities which are available. LGBTQIA plus. I is intersex. Now I know you guys will pick on that. I is intersex. So the idea is based on, this is like an umbrella term for all the other gender identities which are there. Now coming to that third statement, look at that over there. Under this law, there is no explicit provision. The law itself is the explicit provision which says that you cannot be discriminated based on gender. Okay, so your first statement and third statement, both are correct. Okay, the answer to this question is D, 1 and 3 only. Okay, guys. Now, moving on to a mains question. See, the mains question over here is critically evaluate the Indian legislations on preventing sexual harassment against women. Also cite better practices from other regions of the world. So this is what you can say is that when it comes to certain aspects, critically evaluate Indian legislatures. When I'm saying critically evaluate Indian legislatures, what you can see is that here you have to talk about the POSH Act. You have to talk about the POXO. You can talk about certain schemes like the Ujjwala, which is there. And you can also say about how certain sections of IPC, your 375, the 376, all these sections prevent your sexual harassment against women. Now, what do you do in the rest part of the answer? You try to say how all around the world there are better practices like your Title 9, and you compare this with the Indian laws and you say what are the lessons we can take from this, and that will be your mains answer for this question. Okay, so with that we come to an end to this topic. Now we are moving on to the next topic, which is 25 years of Hong Kong's return to China. Okay, now yes, now when we are going into Hong Kong's return into China, first we have to know some idea about what actually happened in the past. So as of now, the context of this news is that July 1, 2022 marked the 25th anniversary of Hong Kong's return to China. Now I want all of you to just sit back and listen this as a story. Okay, and then in the course of time, you can read the slides and everything. So what exactly is what exactly is the history of Hong Kong related with China. First thing is, way back in the time of almost 1840 and beyond that, Hong Kong was a British colony. Okay, as British had colonized India, they came like small traders. They started trading very exotic Chinese goods, which are your silk, opium, tea. They started trading these things, and slowly they started capturing this entire area, which was made a British colony. Okay, so now when Hong Kong was ruled as a British colony for a long time, it is not just few years, okay, for almost 154 plus years, it was actually a British colony. Then what started happening is, in the 18 or the first Opium War, which was there, it actually cemented the idea that this is going to be a British colony. Why? Because in the beginning, when Hong Kong was actually existing, this was under the Chinese Empire. As any other place the British had done, what happened is, slowly into this Chinese Empire, they started coming. And by the end of the first Opium War, which is in 1839 to 1842 period, what happened is, Hong Kong came under complete British control. Okay, now Hong Kong came under complete British control. Again, this got cemented by the Treaty of Nanjing. Cemented means that they clearly mentioned that you are not going to, China is not going to have any control over Hong Kong. It is going to be a complete British colony. So this is what was happening in the Treaty of Nanjing. Again, in the second convention of Peking, what happens is, what was said is that in 1898, the British signed the second convention, which granted certain rights. The Chinese Qing dynasty, which was there, they said, okay, some islands which are there, you can control some of the islands related to Hong Kong, that too only for a 99-year lease. This was mentioned. So until then, it's very clear as to what was happening. Earlier it was under Chinese Empire. British came in. They took the entire Hong Kong under their control, and they gave some bits and pieces to China. You be happy with this. Okay. So China became like what you say, intruder in their own country, which was there. Then what started happening is, slowly, because British was there, and British was there for almost 154 years. So what started happening is, British started developing Hong Kong. So if you look at it, in the 1891 period and all, the first gas factory comes in Hong Kong. Very soon after that, the first automobile factory comes. So slowly, what started happening is, Hong Kong started becoming a commercial hub. And Hong Kong, because what is the kind of ideology that the British would have had? It's basically capitalism. What is capitalism? Capitalism basically means that you acquire an area, you conduct business over there, you are not much bothered about the people's welfare over there. Okay, you try gaining maximum money out of there. So capitalism basically gives a lot of importance to your private sector and to your corporates. So because Hong Kong had this culture from earlier time onwards, you will see that in this period, Hong Kong started developing, or the people of Hong Kong, they became very used to the capitalist ideology. Okay, now when it comes to the capitalist ideology, at the same time, what was happening in China? We all know for a fact, China is what? China is a communist country. And in a communist country, what is the chief ideology which is there? Socialism. Socialism means what? Socialism doesn't mean that, okay, you will try getting maximum money out of there. Socialism means that you will make money, that money will be equally redistributed amongst all sections of the society. And the government itself will take an initiative to actually redistribute this income. So you do understand, China, which used to be under, both of these places were under British control only, but Hong Kong had much more better resources. British started focusing all their efforts on Hong Kong. Hong Kong started getting developed in a good manner. Hong Kong had a capitalist ideology. China, on the other hand, they were not, in comparison to Hong Kong, it was not much developed. And in turn, they had a socialist ideology. All this was fine until what happened? You had your Second World War. In your Second World War also, you know that, okay, the world, you had Japan fighting on the other side. China sided with the countries which are like US and UK and so on. So after a long while, there were so many discussions happening. And finally, in the 1984, Sino-British Joint Declaration. What is Sino-British? Sino is China. British, you all know. Okay. So China-British Joint Declaration, it was said that now Hong Kong will be returned back to China. So after a long while, now Hong Kong was, or they said, as per this declaration, we are going to return it back to China. Though the joint declaration came in 1984, it actually was put into practice only in 1997. Now you understand why this is the 25th year of this happening. Understand? So, though the joint declaration came in 1984, they clearly mentioned that whatever is the territory which is called as Hong Kong right now, we are going to give it back to China. Who are going to give it back? British are going to give it back. So, all good. China is very happy. Now, do you think when British said that China is happy, British is also okay with it? Who were not okay with it? Hong Kong was not okay with it. Hong Kong is like, what is this happening right now? We are having a capitalist ideology. There is so much businesses happening over here. How will we be part of a communist country like China, where communism is the exact opposite of a capitalist ideology? So at that point, China said, see, you guys don't worry. We'll do one thing. We will be one country itself, but we can follow two systems. We on the mainland, the Chinese mainland means the larger part of China, they will follow a socialist ideology. Hong Kong is free to follow a capitalist ideology. Not only this, China went overboard. China was very, very happy to get Hong Kong back. So China said, you also do one thing, you make your own constitution. You make your own constitution, own national anthem, own legislative assembly, or everything you have as your own. Just ensure that when you tell to the outside world, we all are one country itself. Seems very nice, no? Do you think China is a very innocent country who would be taking this forward like this? China said at this point, we will have a system called as one country, two systems. And China also said that you can make your own law which is there. And Hong Kong went forward and made something called as the Basic Law Acts. Okay, so the Basic Law Acts clearly mention that the city's capitalist system will be kept exactly like it. There will be independent legislative, executive and judicial powers for 50 years. That is until 2047, we are going to be like this. But in this, Hong Kong did not mention what is going to happen to them after 2047. Okay, anyway, that is a defect that Hong Kong had. But anyway, Hong Kong went on and said that, okay, we are ready to be part of you. We will be a specially administrated region. We will be a specially administrated region of China, which means China can interfere in Hong Kong only in the cases of foreign affairs and national defense. Only in the case of foreign affairs and national defense can China interfere in Hong Kong. In all the other aspects, it is like having its own systems itself. Is this part clear to all of you until here? Okay. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, and Rishabh has mentioned, ma'am, China cannot be innocent. Yes, Rishabh, that is exactly my point. That is where we are coming to. China cannot be that innocent when it comes to these things. Yes, yes. So you have all understood. So now what has happened is Hong Kong was returned to China based on this agreement. So in 1997, this was returned. And when you look at it, when you look back at it, just because of the fact that Hong Kong was a British colony, there was so much of financial and cultural development happening over there. Okay. And the people over there, the education standards over there, the science and technology development over there, this was much more far better than the Chinese mainland. So obviously, China is not going to be like, okay, we'll have just control in foreign affairs and national defense. China had this clear eye. Hong Kong is very, very crucial for economic development. I believe there is a technical glitch involved in here. Just a minute, guys. Just give us 1 minute until we sort this out. Yes, I acknowledge the fact that video is not visible, guys. We are working on it. Just give us a moment. Please don't leave. We're working on it. Okay, guys, so I believe there is a technical glitch, but then you all have given me so much of reassurance by saying that you can see the slides. Can you all see the slides and hear my voice clearly at this point? Perfect. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So we'll do one thing. Until they solve the issue, we should not waste any time that is there. So we will continue with the session while in the background, they will be working on solving the technical glitch which is there. Okay, guys? So, yes. So where were we? We were talking about Hong Kong and the aspect where yeah. So the aspect where in the case of the colonial rule which was there, so you had all these improvements, be it the cultural area, be it the rule of law. You see that Hong Kong is a much more developed space than China. In China, you do not have even freedom of speech and expression in a good manner. Hong Kong, on the other hand, they are exemplary when it comes to internet connectivity, and it comes very, very good when it comes to the rule of law which is there. So, on the whole, the Hong Kong people, though they agreed that we will be part of China, they didn't want the values and culture that China was following. They were very happy with their own cultural values. Then it comes to the okay, I have realized that even the slides cannot be changed. So just give us a minute, guys. I'm very, very happy for all of you who are waiting there very patiently. Just give us a moment, because if I have to change the slides also, for some reason, the screen is now. Okay, guys, can you see the feed right now? Can you see the screen? Can you hear my voice clearly right now? Yes, 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 yes. Okay, perfect. Yes, so I hope you all can see this in a very clear manner. I'm glad that we are back again, guys. So let's go into the next thing which is there. See, when it comes to the so the next thing that we have to discuss is, so when Hong Kong came under this idea of one country, one country, two systems which are there, you will understand that. Just a minute, guys. I'm trying to work out the pen here. Okay, guys, I think we are good to go right now. So, the idea is when Hong Kong had this idea of one country, two systems, ideally Hong Kong was expecting that. And yes, Vaibhav, I understand it was taking too long. But then I hope now, since we are back on ground, it is all good to go right now. Thank you all for waiting so long. It shows how much that you care to learn about these topics. So, now what happened is when you had one country, two systems, there was a special administrative region which was primarily said that when it came to Hong Kong, Hong Kong would be considered as a special administrative region which is there. That is the first thing. The second thing is that China clearly mentioned that this is only part of China's national unification policy. China does not want to actually intrude into Hong Kong or anything. It's just China's way of saying that we all were once under the Chinese empire. Let's all be back together. It's not just Hong Kong which is there. Even countries like your Taiwan, Macau, all these countries became part or became under this idea called as national unification policy. So you will see that this concept was devised for Taiwan, Hong Kong, Macau. So their political systems were not disturbed, but they came about with China. See, everything was good until very recently what China started doing. And as earlier, I think Vaibhav had only mentioned earlier itself as to how China is not so innocent. What China started doing is they were given rights only for foreign policy and national defense. The first thing China did is they passed something called as a national security law. In the national security law, this is a very outrageous law, guys. So you have to understand, just if you want to write the term, it's the national security law which is there. Now, in the law, yes, in the law, what happens is that in when it comes to any journalist, any public activist, any other category of people who are involved in the freedom of speech and expression over there, in the internet media over there, they can be easily cracked down by China. Crackdown means that, for example, China is saying that, okay, this journalist has published this news article. It is against national security. And they can be put under jail. So when this law came, Hong Kong was like, hey, how can you make this law? This is our internal matter. But China is like, no, this is not your internal matter. This is bothering national defense. This is the first problem that was there. They brought about a national security law which actually started prosecuting the protest leaders and activists which are there. Okay. Then it again comes into the fact that according to this national security law, several media houses, newspaper agencies which were there, China started censoring it. China started censoring it. China started saying that if at all they are publishing anything, it will go against the foreign interest of China. They started censoring that also. It didn't end over there. This is the most recent thing. I'm pretty sure some of you would have read in news. There was something which said that when it comes to China, they started interfering in the educational policy of Hong Kong. What they tried doing is, now you guys have understood, Hong Kong was a British colony for almost 155 years. Okay, and Hong Kong has its all kinds of what you say improvements because of it being a British colony. Now what China did is, China started changing the syllabus of these books which are there, and in the syllabus of the books, what they started saying is that they removed the idea that Hong Kong was a British colony. Thereby, they have distorted the entire idea of what Hong Kong is. Let me just clarify it once again to all of you. Is my screen clearly visible and my audio clear to all of you at this point? Yes, yes. I've seen all the smileys and everything that is there. So now coming into the fact of the next certain things, some of you have asked about the national security. Okay, backside of your screen is not visible properly. I hope the front is very clearly visible to all of you. Audio is getting disrupted. See, these are all small technical issues, but I hope you can get the gist of the class that I am taking. This is what I want to convey to all of you also. Now, some of the other challenges that Hong Kong is facing. So the protest leaders got put into jail. Media houses were undergoing certain other kinds of restrictions because of China. Then they even went on to disrupt the education system which is there. Didn't end over there. They created an extradition policy. What is an extradition policy? An extradition policy basically says that when it comes to any crimes that are happening in Hong Kong, if China wants, they can take the prisoners from Hong Kong, take them to China, put them under a Chinese jail, put them under the Chinese judiciary, and give them the punishment as per Chinese law. This is not something that was promised in the earlier times. Why? Because Hong Kong was very, very clear as to why it does not want to have anything to do with China. It did not want the judiciary. It did not want the legislative of China. But now the prisoners of Hong Kong are starting to get tried in China. Now, do you think this is fair to Hong Kong? Hong Kong ideally is a country that wants to have certain values. This is not fair to China. So, name of the policy, Mahek, extradition. EXTRADITION, extradition policy. So there is an extradition policy that has come about, and on the whole, if you look at it, all this started affecting the financial situation of Hong Kong. Why? Because constantly there is trouble between China and Hong Kong. So any new businesses which want to come, they're like, okay, fine, we are letting go of Hong Kong. We don't want to come to Hong Kong because there is so much of confusion over here. Because of all this, now the international community is like, now it is not one country, two systems. It is just one country, one system, and that one country is China. So Hong Kong's independence has been compromised. Hong Kong's all aspects when it comes to whatever what you can say autonomy it had, that got affected. Okay, so when it comes over here, the next thing that we have to know is, does any of these things have any impact on India? It has an impact on India. Why? Because, see, India and Hong Kong have had very good relations in the past. India and China might not have had such good relations, but you will see that India and Hong Kong had good relations. So you will start seeing that when it comes to over here, when it comes to the impact it had on India, the first thing that has the impact is it will affect the large Indian community which is present on, just a minute again. Yes, the large Indian community which is present there in Hong Kong, that is almost 38,000 of them, are going to get affected by this. Why? Because they do not want to be part of a China controlled Hong Kong. They have gone over there in the hopes of having a very free and very what you say just kind of what you say Hong Kong which is there. If China is controlling it, they will not want to be over there. So this is going to negatively affect the Indian community which is there. This Hong Kong is a very popular destination for higher education studies. This will get affected. Next thing is, any investments, India was planning to have a lot of investments from Hong Kong. Even Hong Kong and India had good relations also. These investments will get affected. Why? Because do you think China will be very happy about investing in India when they are controlling Hong Kong? No, they will not. So what is going to happen? These investments are going to get affected. Earlier, Hong Kong was India's 5th largest trading partner. Now, when it is going to happen, this trade deficit is also going to get affected. So, beyond all this, one other thing is India and Hong Kong had an extradition treaty. India and Hong Kong had an extradition treaty which said that if any person of Hong Kong origin, if he comes to India and commits a crime and then he goes back to Hong Kong, then if India requests, Hong Kong can actually give back that prisoner to India. Similarly, vice versa also. If an Indian person comes to Hong Kong, does a crime over there and goes back to India, as per the extradition policy which India and Hong Kong had, it is a very cooperative thing, no? So what will happen? That Indian person can be brought back to Hong Kong and tried as per the Hong Kong law. Think about this. If China is controlling Hong Kong, don't you think China will start misusing this policy? They will say that certain Indian person has committed some crime over here and they will be asking them to send back the prisoners to Hong Kong. So these are all the issues which might happen if this one country, two system policy gets diluted and becomes a one country, one system policy. I know we had technical glitches in the middle, but I hope it is all clear to you right now. Is it clear? This issue is clear to all of you? Aldifa has asked, why don't we hear about Macau as a big issue? The reason why we don't hear about Macau as a big issue is because Macau is a small island with not so much of economic importance. Hong Kong is not like that. Hong Kong has very, very huge economic importance when it comes to Chinese economy and it comes to the global economy. That is why there are a lot of discussions when it comes to Hong Kong. Okay? Okay, so because just in case we had these technical queries also, those who have just missed the session in between, I'll quickly summarize the entire thing. The idea was that earlier Hong Kong used to be part of Chinese Empire. Then around the time of 1841, what happened is it became a British colony. For a long time, it remained a British colony. For almost 155 years, it remained a British colony. But in 1984, as per the Sino-British Joint Declaration, it was said that Hong Kong will be returned back to China. And this return was done in 1997. We are today in when you can see this month, we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of Hong Kong being returned to China. Now, the issue is not about the return or the history. The issue is primarily when Hong Kong had a capitalist system, China had a communist system. So Hong Kong wanted to preserve its own values and Hong Kong said, okay, we can be part of China, but we will have a system where it is one country, two systems. Hong Kong will follow all the executive, judiciary and everything that Hong Kong wants to. China need not interfere in it. It was all going well until when China started interfering in the security affairs, in the education policy, in the media censorship, in all these aspects which Hong Kong considered as very important to them, China started interfering. So now we are moving from a one country, two system policy to a one country, one system policy where China is controlling the entire idea of Hong Kong. And this has impacts on India also. Why? Because India and Hong Kong had good relations. But India and China are not like the best of friends or anything. So what happens is, when China is going to start controlling Hong Kong, the relations that Hong Kong and India shared will also get affected. So this is the summary of this entire topic. Before we go into it, there is a did you know thing. The word Hong Kong, okay, this is the origin of it. I found it very amusing for the reason being, Hong Kong translates into fragrant harbor. You can see Hong Kong is like a port, right? It's like a port city. Fragrant means the one that has a lot of good smell. The reason why it was called so is because in the earlier times, Hong Kong used to be the chief spot for your agarbatti sticks, your incense sticks which are there. That used to be the chief item of export from there. So when you had your British people coming over there, most of the time these ports used to have a good fragrance around them. So when they studied Mandarin, when they studied Chinese, this was a term that they said, okay, it fits them well. So the idea of Hong Kong is called as fragrant harbor. So I found it amusing, so I thought I'll share it with you guys. Now we move into the poll question. So yes, let's look at over here with reference to Hong Kong recently in the news. Consider the following statements. The Sino-British Joint Declaration of 1984 dictated the terms under which Hong Kong was returned to China. Clear? The one country, two systems policy demarcated it. It means Hong Kong over here. Okay? Demarcated Hong Kong as a special administrative region of the People's Republic of China that has been largely free to manage its own affairs. They are asking, when initially the agreement was made, what was the conditions of it. So these both statements read in a good manner. I'm going to start the poll right now. So the question is, which of the statements given are correct? Okay, so we launch the poll right now. You guys can start marking your answers of the poll. Harshita has asked a question in between, so I'm looking through your questions also. The thing is that she's asked a very valid question. If the foreign policy of Hong Kong was under China, then how did the extradition treaty happen with India independently? The extradition treaty is not part of the foreign policy. It is part of the law and order policy of Hong Kong. It is primarily to do with criminal activities, corruption related activities. It is not part of the foreign policy. Okay? That is why it did not come under the idea of, as per your question, it did not come under the control of China. Okay, so we are ending the poll. The poll is going to end right now. Yes, perfect. Almost 75% of you have marked the right answer. I am actually relieved because this makes me sure that you have understood the topic. I'll just show the leaderboard right now. So those who have scored right answers in both the polls, you can see your names over here. Those all who've scored right answers in the first poll and the second poll, I hope you can see your names in the leaderboard right now. Now we are moving on to the question, the main question related to this. The recent policies adopted by China have subverted its earlier position of one country, two systems towards Hong Kong. Comment. Also discuss its implications for India. It's a very direct question. See, again, if you have to get started on your preparation, you should be writing mains answers. This question is very clear. The recent policies. Which are the recent policies adopted by China? First policy is the national security law. Second policy is the changes in the education policy. Third policy is the extradition policy, which is there. Fourth policy is the censorship of media houses. Because of all this itself, it has changed this idea of one country, two systems into a one country, one system idea. Okay, so you have to mention all these policies and the impact it has had on it. You can also discuss the impact that is there on India. How many of you will write this answer and send it over to us for evaluation? Harsh has also asked, is the trade of Hong Kong also controlled by China? Until very recently, it was not controlled by China. But in the coming days, it might get controlled because China is going on trying to get control over different aspects of Hong Kong. Yes, there are a lot of people who have said they will send answers. Well done, guys. Now we move on to ISRO's POEM platform. Okay, before we move on to ISRO's POEM platform, you have to understand, you all know what ISRO is, right? ISRO is Indian Space Research Organization. It is the premier space research organization in the country. Premier means the most important one. Okay, now the context is, very recently, the ISRO has achieved the feat of successfully launching PSLV Orbital Experimental Module. The short form of this is POEM, P-O-E-M. Okay, now the question comes, what is so great about this? Now, to understand what is great about this, you need to know the first word over here, PSLV. I know some of you might have already heard about it. PSLV is your Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle. The extended details of it you might be studying in science and technology. What you have to understand is, and this part of it you have to clearly hear me out, okay? If you are from science background or non-science background, hear me out in a very clear manner. See, Polar Satellite Launch Vehicles are used to launch satellites into polar orbits. What are polar orbits? Polar orbits are the orbits that will be very near to the Earth. In a gap of, maybe it will be like in a gap of 120 to 200 kilometers from the Earth's surface, you have certain orbits called as polar orbit. What is an orbit? The orbit is the path of a satellite. I know these are all the queries you might be getting. That is why I'm talking from the most simple terms of it. Now, Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle is used to launch satellites into the polar orbit. Okay. Now coming into the factor, do you think satellite will just from the Earth, they will shoot it up and it will go and stay on the orbit there? No. Each launch vehicle has different stages. Okay. What are stages? Stages means that, for example, I am launching a rocket. I am launching a launch vehicle from here, PSLV from here. Initially, it needs some energy to move up. At that point, the first stage of it, there will be, for example, if you look at a rocket closely, all along the rocket, you will see metal sheets which cover it. Okay, you will see a lot of things. For example, if I were to draw a rocket like this, there will be sheets like this on it. Okay. Now, what has happened is, when you have different stages, initially, what is going to happen? The fuel will start burning. When the fuel will start burning, the rocket will rise up from the ground. When it rises up from the ground, whatever stages are there in the initial parts, the idea is, as the rocket goes further and further, each of these stages have to be left out. When each of the stages are left out, the weight of the rocket actually reduces and it becomes easier for the rocket to go into outer space. Now you must be asking, why are we initially itself putting these stages? These stages have to be put initially so that the rocket remains in a stable way at every point. For example, there is a rocket starting from here. When it reaches till here, the first stage of that rocket will move apart. It will go and fall into a water body which is there. This is why you must have seen most of the times when rockets get launched from Sriharikota. Where is Sriharikota? On the Andhra Pradesh coast which is there. You will see that when it starts moving itself, that whatever stages itself, it goes and falls into the Bay of Bengal. Now, ideally, so that stage goes. Rocket moves a little bit more further, the next stage falls away. Even little bit more further, now at this point, the rocket is going outside the atmosphere. At that point, some stage falls away. And finally, what remains is the fourth stage. The fourth stage is going to be where once it has gone into space, it gets removed from the space. So ideally, PSLV, and especially in PSLV is a four-stage rocket. The first three stages will get eliminated, will get dropped in the Bay of Bengal and other water bodies which are there. The fourth stage becomes dropped into the space, and it becomes what? It becomes space junk. Space junk means garbage that is there in the space. Okay, this fourth stage of PSLV and the fourth and the final stage of PSLV is called as PS4. Not your video game PS. This is PS4, which is the final stage of the PSLV that is there. Is the part till here clear to all of you? Only if it's clear, then I can go forward with teaching you what poem is. Yes. Okay. Now, Afreen has asked, why only 4 stages? Why can there not be 5 or 6 stages? There are a lot of rockets which have 5 or 6 or 7 stages. Here we are just talking about PSLV. Okay. PSLV is a 4-stage rocket. Each, it depends on what kind of payload you have. What is payload? Payload is the kind of additional things that you might be carrying into space. If your payload is higher, they might have more number of stages. Okay, Afreen, I hope that doubt is clear. Perfect. So I have till here everything is clear. Now coming to the topic of the day. Ideally, when it comes to PSLV, very recently what has happened is, so they are going on thinking all these other stages are falling into the water. But this fourth stage, it is there as space junk. And if it is there as space junk, don't you think it will be creating the space pollution which is there? Because every other time when you are launching a PSLV, there will be some garbage stage 4 which is going to be orbiting in the space. And is it orbiting in a good manner? No. That space junk which is over there, it will just float around in space. Sometimes it will go and hit some other satellite. Sometimes it will go and hit some other body which is there. So this is basically not a very good tendency. So now what ISRO did is, they came up with an idea, why don't we convert this fourth stage which is there, if we are able to put it into a perfect orbit and we are able to put some experimental equipments on it, we might use this as a mini satellite itself. Very brilliant idea, right? Anyway, the space junk is there in the space. Why are we just simply wasting it? Let's put some additional equipment on it in such a way where that space junk will start orbiting around and we can have some experimental analysis also. And out of this very brilliant idea is the idea called as POEM that has come about. So in POEM, basically what is happening is PSLV. Now you understand what is PSLV. Next thing is orbital. Orbital means it will be going in a perfect orbit. Experimental. Experimental means what? On that fourth stage, you are going to put sensors. You are going to put some additional equipment which can be used to do experiments in the space. And module, so you understand, module means a combination of all this. This is what is POEM. Okay, so now very recently, how did we try this? We tried this in ISRO when they sent out PSLV C-53. There was a satellite, or this was a launch vehicle that we sent out. There were some other satellites along with this itself. Along with this, what we did is, we have tried this POEM platform. So now you know the PSLV C-53 which is there, it had a fourth stage, and the fourth stage of PSLV C-53 is right now orbiting the Earth as an experimental module which is there. This is the idea of poem. Now we will go into some of the description about it. We should understand, no, we cannot just leave it like, okay, we have understood poem. We have to know some technical details about it. One thing is, poem is basically a platform that will help conduct in-orbit experiments using the final stage of ISRO's Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle. Now you must be thinking, what experiments can be conducted? Ideally, it is just a platform sort of a thing, no? So what experiments can be conducted? See, this is a space junk which is there, which means it is not even like a satellite which is so elaborate or anything. You just need very small additional fixtures on it. When you put additional fixtures, the amount of temperature that is coming from the sun, the any other kind of what you say, asteroid or comet or anything which is there, these are all space particles which are there. If anything is coming, that can be detected. So on the whole, several kinds of experiments can be done through this module. The poem which we have right now sent, that is the fourth stage of the PSLV C53, which we have right now sent, it had 6 payloads. That is the next word that you have to understand. Payloads. Payloads means like when we go for a trip, we will carry luggage along with us, right? Similarly, when the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle is launching something, it will carry some payload along with it, some luggage along with it. That luggage, now don't understand it as luggage. This luggage is basically all these equipments that will be conducting space, what you say, space related experiments. So along with the poem, 6 payloads have gone. What are the 6 payloads which are there? They are including 2 from Indian space startups like Digantra and Dhruva Space. There are even payloads from Singapore. So ideally, you have one platform which is having all these different equipments on it, fixed on it. And how will the poem platform, will it just work like that? No, it is deriving its power from solar panels which are there. The solar panels which are there in the PS4 which is there, and the solar panels will constantly power a lithium ion battery. And the lithium ion battery is what will power all these other equipments which are there on the platform. Okay, not only this, it carries dedicated control thrusters. Again, coming to another word, what are control thrusters? It carries control thrusters which use helium gas storage. Now, control thrusters means, see, ideally, I am launching one platform. I earlier told you, if it is just space junk, it will be floating in a very nice manner all around the space. But that is not possible. Now you have to put it into orbit. When you put it into orbit, you have to have some kind of control with you, no? Because, for example, you want that orbit to move in a good direction. If I want to change the direction, I need some equipment called as thrusters. So thrusters are those small engines by which, if I am firing it, for example, I want this rocket which was going in a straight manner, I want it to turn this direction. I wanted to turn it like this. So what I do is, I will start initiating the thruster. When I start initiating the thruster, it will slowly move into that direction. So these are the control thrusters which are there as part of the poem platform. Is this topic clear to all of you until here? Perfect. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so, okay, the fourth point, you require explanation. Again, some of you have mentioned. The idea is that you have control thrusters. See, ideally, if you are having a platform that is put over there, if it needs to go in a specific direction, you need to have some kind of an energy given to it. See, ideally, there is this rocket. It is going like this. It's going in a very normal manner. Now, I want it to change. If it's going in this direction, I want to change its direction. If I want to change its direction, I need to put some additional energy to it. If I need to put some additional energy, will I be able to do it just normally like that? No. You need some equipment called as thrusters. So in the thruster, there is helium gas filled. Okay, so what happens is when I want to change the direction, these thrusters will start burning that helium gas. With that energy, I can move the rocket into or move the POEM platform into the direction I want. This is the fourth point. Is it clear again? Is it clear to all of you? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, all of you, that is clear. So if at all you guys are having any more doubts, I am here only at the end. We will clear all the doubts. Don't worry about that. Okay, so until now, I think everything is clear. Now, so just to tell you this, it is for the very first time that we have managed to actually put, we earlier also we were conducting experiments, but along with this, as per this PSLV C53 mission which is there, it is for the very first time this stage will now orbit the Earth as a stabilized platform. What is a stabilized platform? Stabilized platform means it will be properly controlled. It is not going to be in a manner where it is going to go in its own direction, which is there. Okay, and the POEM also has a dedicated navigation guidance along with it. If anything has to be changed, we can control it from the Earth to navigate its direction. So this is the POEM platform, friends. Now coming into, this is something that I want to share with you to understand. A lot of you have asked about PSLV, which is there. PSLV, which is over here, when you look at it, PSLV is the workhorse of Indian space. Workhorse means constantly it is going on working. It's in one system itself or in one flight itself, PSLV is able to send almost 100 satellites into space. This is a very important achievement of PSLV, and I felt I had to share it with you because we all can be very proud about these achievements that we have made in the space technology. Okay, so I think all of you have got a good idea about this. Now we go into the poll question over here. With reference to the PSLV orbit experimental module, which is the POEM recently seen in ISRO, recently launched by ISRO, consider the following statements. It will perform in-orbit experiments using the third stage of ISRO's PSLV. Think about it. It will derive its power from solar panels mounted around the PS4 tank. It carries dedicated control thrusters using helium gas storage. I am hoping you all will mark the right answers. I am going to start the poll right now. Just give me a moment. Okay, can we start the poll, guys? I am going to start the poll at this point. Yes, you can start marking your answers. Some of you have asked, how can we control space junk using this? We are not trying to control the space junk. What we are trying to do is, because space junk is already there, we are trying to somehow have a better utilization for it. So now when you are utilizing this as a platform, you need not send a separate payload to conduct that experiment. So in the long run, it will reduce the space junk in that manner. And on top of it, space junk becomes an issue when it is uncontrolled. In this case, it is going to be in a proper manner. It will be in a controlled manner. That is also the advantage of this. I have received the answers of your poll. Almost all of you have marked the right answers. I can see all of you, 77% of you have marked the right answers over here. First thing, first statement is wrong. It is not the third stage. It is the fourth stage which is there. So this statement is wrong. It will derive its power from solar panels. Somebody has asked what solar panels are. Solar panels are basically you have these huge, what you can say, you must have seen on top of houses and all that. You will have some kind of a sheet like thing which will capture solar energy, convert it into electricity for the use for homes and everything. Similarly, it is used to power satellites. So I hope that doubt is clear. Now coming into, it carries dedicated control thrusters using helium gas storage. That is also a right thing. So 2 and 3 is the answer. I hope you have marked the right answer. Do you guys want to see the leaderboard at this point? Again, that option we will try to avail it after the fourth question which is there. Now we are moving on to the next topic, which is UN Ocean Conference, which is there. Okay. Now, when it comes to the UN Ocean Conference, very recently, there was a United Nations convening. They convened a symposium. What is symposium? Symposium is a conference, okay, where they have understood that the seas of the world, the marine wealth of the world is severely deteriorating. It's getting in a very bad position and we need to somehow revive it. This was the theme of the UN Conference 2022. Now, the idea is the UN Conference is otherwise called as the Ocean Conference, which is there. This was co-hosted by countries like Kenya and Portugal. The meeting was held in Lisbon. Lisbon is a city in Portugal. The meeting was co-hosted by Kenya and Portugal. This is important from a prelims perspective. Now, what was the idea of this meeting? The idea was that any ocean-based science which is there and innovation which is there, it has to be promoted. Why? Because as of now, what is happening, I'll tell you. There is huge amount of marine pollution. The marine wealth which is there, the fish, the corals and all are getting depleted. Because of climate change, the sea level is rising in some places. Because the sea level is rising, some other countries are getting affected. All these activities are going on happening. So it becomes necessary that you have to have good technology or innovation to somehow control the effects of climate change, somehow control the effects of marine pollution. So ideally what has happened is scaling up of ocean action based on science and innovation for the implementation of Goal 14. What Goal 14 are we talking about? There is something called as Sustainable Development Goal. In Sustainable Development Goal, there is a Goal 14 which says that we have to protect the marine wealth. So now the idea is we have to bring in technology, we have to bring in science and innovation which will improve that. Okay. Now, they have also tried exploring the interlinkages between SDG 13, which is on climate change, and SDG 14, which is on ocean. What is SDG? Sustainable Development Goal. Sustainable Development Goals are given by whom? Let's see. How many of you know the answer to this? Who are the countries? Who are the, not countries, who has given the idea of Sustainable Development Goals? UN, yes, perfect. A lot of you have mentioned the correct answer. UN has given the idea of Sustainable Development Goal. Now what has happened is the same UN is now trying to have some interrelation. Why? Because see, ocean is there. For ocean, there is Sustainable Goal 14. For climate change, there is Sustainable Development Goal 13. Now, ideally, these are not standalone things. These are not separate things. Because of climate change, ocean is getting affected, right? So, now they are trying to understand that, okay, so if we are trying to tackle climate change, we have to put the idea of ocean wealth also in our mind. Okay, so to discuss all this, they have come together. Now, after the summit which was there, the ocean conference which was there are few outcomes of the summit. And this is important from a prelims perspective. And yeah, something I remember right now, somebody had asked me, what is the importance of the last topic, the poem? See, poem is, if it is coming, it will come like a prelims question. It will not be a mains point of view. If it is coming as a mains question, they might ask you about what is space junk, what are we doing to prevent it, and so on. Okay, but ideally it will come like a prelims question. Similarly, here also, this is more likely to come as a prelims question. So what are the outcomes of the summit? One of the first outcomes is that there is a Lisbon Declaration which was adopted. Okay, what is Lisbon Declaration? Lisbon Declaration was the final agreement that all these other countries reached to after the Ocean Conference, which was happening in Lisbon. Okay, now it was adopted over there, and the title of the entire report is called as Our Ocean, Our Future, Our Responsibility. Now, unlike your Paris Agreement and all, here it was not just 5 or 10 agreements which was there. Almost 700 commitments were made by the attendees who attended this meeting. So now leave the idea that you will sit and study all 700. That you cannot do. Just you have to understand the commitments that they made were all to improve the ocean wealth of the world. Okay. Apart from that, several countries announced new marine protected areas. What are marine protected areas? Okay, let me ask you a better question. Does India have any marine protected areas? Yes, yes. Somebody has asked, did India participate? Obviously, India will participate, or India has participated in the UN conference. Yes, India has a lot of marine protected areas. Your Gulf of Mannar region, which is between your the southern coast and your Sri Lankan area, which is there. The Gulf of Mannar, the Park Strait, all that falls under your marine protected areas. Okay, so marine protected area means that it is a water body that will be protected both by your national laws and even internationally. People cannot come and dump your waste and everything over these areas. Okay, so in this meeting, some countries announced the new marine protected areas that they are planning to protect. Okay, a number of philanthropic organizations, including the Bloomberg Philanthropies and the Bezos Fund, which was there, they have pledged almost $1 billion for the protection of marine wealth. You don't have to study the names of the organization. Just understand that in the UN conference, these are private organizations which have given their fund for the protection of marine wealth. Finally, some of the countries, they came together and they said, we have to put a ban on deep sea mining. We will discuss what deep sea mining is, but I want you to understand, though they came together and discussed about it, in the meeting, there was no final decision made on it. They have kept it for the other meeting, the next meeting that will happen. This is an yearly meeting that is there. So the next meeting that is there, they will discuss on the ban on deep sea mining. Now coming into what is deep sea mining. Deep sea mining basically means that at the ocean bed, which is there, you have very, very important minerals which are called as rare earth minerals. You have rare earth minerals. You have some other type of minerals called as your polymetallic nodules. What are polymetallic nodules? For example, poly means what? Different, several types. Metallic means what? Different type of metals. So at the ocean bed, you will have different metals forming small, small nodules. Nodules means small, small structures like this. Round, round, round structures which are there. Now, it is assumed that this is very, very rich in the mineral wealth, and when we are able to extract it, we can use it for all these new age technologies like creation of silicon chips. What is silicon chips? In your phone and all, you have that silicon chips which are there, no? For all these activities, it can be used. So now every other country wants to do deep sea mining. But ideally, think about it. Do you think it will have any impact when we are doing deep sea mining? Imagine this, you're going to the ocean, you are digging deep into the ocean and trying to extract the minerals from there. When the ocean bed changes, ideally right now this is the ocean bed. You have the ocean on top of it. Now you're going and digging deep, the ocean bed is going to get even more decreased. Don't you think the water over here will also move according to that? So now what is going to happen is, when you promote deep sea mining, it is going to create a situation where some new type of natural disaster might even happen. It might maybe lead to some tsunamis, different types of tsunamis happening. New areas might be submerged underwater. This is why countries want a ban on deep sea mining. But again, on the other hand, countries like India, feel that because the Indian Ocean belt, which is there, is very rich in minerals, India does not want the ban to happen. Why? Because India feels it can extract this and use it to good economic purpose. Is this topic clear to all of you? It's a very small topic. You just have to understand what are the outcomes of the conference. Is the topic clear? Tanya has mentioned this is going to be very, Tanya, Rishabh, all of you have mentioned, yes, it is going to have huge impacts, dangerous impacts when it comes over here. Yes. I don't see a lot of yeses happening. Are you not clear with the topic? Is that why you're not mentioning? If you cannot mention yes, you can also do one thing. You can just put that smiley thing also so we can understand that you have understood it. Okay. Perfect. Now you've given me all the responses. Now let's go into the poll question. It's a very simple question. With reference to the UN Conference 2022, which was recently in the news, consider the following statements. The Lisbon Declaration was adopted by representatives titled Our Ocean, Our Future, Our Responsibility. First statement. No countries announced new marine protected areas during the summit. Read the statement carefully. Question is asking, which of the following statements given above mark the incorrect one? Okay, so I am launching the poll. Just give me a moment, guys. Okay, can start marking your answers now. Arun has asked how you can watch this session again. I'm hoping that is because you have what you can say, you've liked the class so much that you want to watch it again. Anyway, if you want to watch it again, it will be there on the BEP app itself. After this session is over, you just have to go to the past classes which are there. You will be able to see this lesson. Okay, Arun? What is MPA? Srishti, MPA is marine protected areas. Your poll is going to end right now. I hope you guys have marked the answers. Yes, you guys have marked the answers and very well. 85% of you have marked the answers. I'm going to show the leaderboard right now. Let's see. Avneet, Kirti, Anurag, Abhishek, Alokita, lot of you who have marked the answers, what you can say, who've got all the 4 answers correct. You can be very good and feel very good about yourselves because you have understood all these topics in a good manner. Now let's move on. So the answer over here is what? The first statement is correct. The second statement is wrong because countries have announced their marine protected areas. Meaning what? Which is the incorrect statement? 2 only. And that brings us to the end of that topic. Now we move on to the final topic of the day, which is internet shutdowns. See, I'm seeing all your responses, guys. Don't worry. So some of you have this thing, why am I not answering questions? Don't worry. At the end, we will be taking up questions. I will be going through your comments and everything. Don't worry. Be patient about it. Okay. So now coming into the final topic of the day, internet shutdowns. Why are we even discussing about this, guys? Very recently in Rajasthan, there was a very brutal crime committed in daylight. And the video of it, I hope you all know this, a person was hacked, as in he was killed using in a very brutal manner, and a video was taken of it and it was put onto social media and online platforms. This is a very graphic and a very disturbing video. So at that point, what the Rajasthan government, for a temporary period, what they did is they imposed a ban on the internet services of the state. They feared that because, see, ideally, this had a very communal nature. Okay, the person who was killed and the people who had committed the murder, they belong to two separate religious groups. And the government feared that in the coming hours after the murder, there will be a lot of messages and lot of propaganda which happens by saying that we have to take revenge on this, we have to go against it. All these propaganda might happen. Propaganda means the kind of agenda that you will say that, okay, let's go do this, let's go take revenge on this. So to avoid all that, the Rajasthan government put a ban on the internet services, a temporary ban. This is the first context. The second context, in the last week itself, the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, OHCHR, they have released a report which says that internet shutdowns, the trends, causes and legal implications and impacts on a range of activities. Because both of these news has come into picture, we have to talk about this, we have to discuss this issue. Now, ideally, before I go into this, do you think internet shutdown, because see, we all spend most of our times on our phones and on through internet, do you think internet shutdowns is a good idea? If you think it's a good idea, you can mark yes and let me know. Internet shutdown, is it actually good for a country which is very democratic? What do you think? No, a lot of no's are coming. Yes, guys, I'm very happy that you are thinking in the right direction, because internet shutdown means that you are trying to put some kind of a ban on freedom of speech and expression. So now we are going to explore if it's a good thing or a bad thing. There are both arguments on both sides. We are going to explore it. At the end of the session, I will ask you the question again, and I want your responses to this question again. Okay. Yes, some of them have said it's not good, but then we have to do it at some time. That is the conclusion that we will reach to. So what exactly is internet shutdown? Internet shutdown refers to the measures taken by a government on behalf or on the behalf of a government. Need not always be the government. For example, if the police can also take it, any other body can take it on behalf of the government to intentionally disrupt access and use of information and communication systems online. Online is the key word over here. So intentionally, a body is trying to disrupt. Disrupt means stop the use of information and the access to information, which will happen through online mediums. Now, internet shutdown is not just one broad idea called shutdown. There are several types of internet shutdowns. First type is internet blackout. Internet blackout means complete internet access is stopped. The internet access is completely switched off by the government. This is an extreme measure and it cannot be directly circumvented. Circumvented means that you cannot go beyond this in a very easy manner. This is what was happening in Jammu and Kashmir. In Jammu and Kashmir, at the time of the dissolution, you must have known there was a certain article called as Article 370, and the Article 370 got repealed. And at that point, the government feared there is going to be a lot of terrorist activities and violence in Jammu. So what they did is they shut down the complete internet. There was blackout of internet. For several days, internet facility was not available. Then you have a different kind of shutdown, which is called as social media shutoffs. Social media shutdowns, where popular social media like Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, all of these will be blocked. These can be circumvented. Circumvented means what? I can go every place, there will be someone who will try to go beyond that, right? This just like we have in a class or anything, when somebody is saying, okay, you should not keep or you should all be quiet, there will be someone who will try finding some method to cross it. Similarly, in the case of social media shutdowns, you can circumvent it using a virtual private network. How many of you are aware of VPN or virtual private network? Yes, a lot of you are aware. Now, I'm not going to ask you how you are aware of it, because most of the time, people access virtual private networks. You have something called as VPN. There are separate apps itself for it. You can, when you access internet through VPN, See, ideally, if I'm accessing my phone right now, okay, it will show the location where I am placed at. Based on that location, you must have seen, no? So anybody, any information that I'm looking through, they will be seeing that, okay, that is the server, I can connect it because of this location. Now, if social media is banned in a certain place and I want to access it, the social media access will only be banned. For example, in the social media access, it will be seen, okay, if this person is from Bangalore, cut the access. That is what will be said. So what I will do is, I will create a method whereby which this platform will not detect my location, my exact location, but instead it will detect some other location from where it will be shown like I am accessing the internet. So you have several VPN platforms whereby which if I'm accessing it, I can access VPN of China. I can access VPN of Sri Lanka. I can access VPN of Nepal. So if I am trying to access social media, I might be sitting in that same location itself. I might be sitting in Bangalore or somewhere, but through VPN, when I am trying to access, it will be shown to that social media that somebody from China is trying to access. It will not be shown like somebody from Bangalore is trying to access. Only when Bangalore is there, they will stop the access, right? So this is how you can circumvent social media bans using your virtual private networks. Okay, then the last one is there, and this I believe is going to be the most, the idea of internet totally being shut down is there. Okay, but the severe throttling means the speed of the internet will be reduced. Now you all can imagine, even right now when we are having small technical glitches, how much annoyed and how much frustrated we get. Imagine that you have your 4G speed, 5G speed, in the severe throttling which happens, what happens is they will reduce the speed of the internet, which means you will be sitting trying to send a WhatsApp message on your 2G speed. This is what is called as severe throttling. So ideally, this is exactly like internet. So if it is in 2G network, do you think you will sit and trying to access your video or try to access your messages like that? Because obviously we will get very annoyed, right? So they are saying that this is equivalent to having internet shutdown itself if there is severe throttling. Now coming into the next fact, what is the status of shutdowns in India? Now, in India, if you look at the reports that are there, according to the Software Freedom Law Center, which is there has been almost 665 internet shutdowns in total. Out of this, in the last year, 59 times internet was shut down in India. Can you believe this? We might be in some part where we might not have even experienced this, but 59 times internet has been shut down in a country which is very democratic and where freedom of speech and expression is promoted like a fundamental right. It's quite unbelievable, right? Adding to this, there is another statistic also. Jammu and Kashmir has had more than 411 shutdowns. So if totally there are 665 shutdowns till date, almost 411 shutdowns have been in Jammu and Kashmir itself. Okay, and the longest one went for almost 552 days. Can you imagine? That is almost more than 1 year. It's 1.5 year that internet was shut down in Jammu and Kashmir. Understand? So now it brings us into the question, so this is the status in India. What is the global status which is there? The global status which said, and this is basically in the OHCHR findings. The reason I told you there is a report that has come about, right? In the report that is there, it is said that you will, which for example, there was a coalition called as Keep It On. Okay. They are the ones who collected the data for it. In that, it is seen that almost 931 times in total, internet was shut down globally in the time span between 2016 to 2021. And that has happened in almost 74 countries. What is more shocking is, globally, all the regions have experienced shutdowns, but the majority was reported in Asia and Africa. What does this indicate? These are happening in developing countries. In your developed countries, you do not see this happening frequently. This is the takeaway that the OHCHR findings have given. Okay, so these developing countries have to start working on why they keep shutting down the internet every now and then. Now coming into why, now we are going to explore both the sides. First, let us see from the side of the government. Okay, now from the side of the government or the authorities, if you look, why we have to shut it down at times is, first thing, there is a judgment called as the Anuradha Basin versus Union of India case. In the Anuradha Basin versus Union of India case, it was mentioned that, see, if internet is getting shut down for the purpose of actually serving the sovereignty and security of the country, it is not against the fundamental rights, which means that, for example, let's just assume, let's hypothetically assume China is going to somehow start an attack on us. There is a lot of false news getting spread among the people. There is a lot of fear among the people when this kind of a war might happen. So at that point, this is going to affect, if you are keeping the internet, this is going to spread like wildfire. Everywhere there are going to be viral videos, viral messages that is going to happen. So at that point, according to the Anuradha Basin judgment, it is said that if it is going to affect the security and sovereignty of the country, it is all right. If that specific cause is going to affect the security and sovereignty of the country, then you can go for internet shutdown. The internet shutdown will only be considered as a reasonable restriction. Reasonable restriction. I know the writing might not be very clear. There is, because we had a technical thing, I have to use my fingers. That is why the handwriting is not very clean today, neat today. Don't worry, this is something that we'll solve in the next sessions, which is there. Now coming over here, when it comes to the Anuradha Basin judgment, they said that it is a reasonable restriction. Internet shutdown is a reasonable restriction on the freedom of speech and expression. What is reasonable restriction? Reasonable restriction means that at times you will have to do this if you want to protect the security and sovereignty of the country. That is the first thing. Second thing is that the same point that I mentioned, to ensure security and sovereignty of the country, you will have to stop the internet and the spread of the word of mouth or whatever messaging and everything for quite some time. Preventing misinformation and disinformation campaigns. We know at the time of corona and all, you would have seen how on a daily basis there would be WhatsApp messages which says that corona is not this kind of virus, corona is Chinese virus, China has to be countered, like that. Have you all seen that kind of a news? Have you all at one point or the other come across a fake news that you got spread through WhatsApp? I just want to know this. Yes, almost all of you have marked yes to it. This is exactly my point. You will have come across something like this. Now imagine, what if the fake news, when it is related to some, okay, if you have raw turmeric, corona will be cured. If that is the kind of fake news which is there, that is not going to affect a large number of people. But imagine this, if the fake news is, okay, there is going to be a riot, you are going to get attacked. This will create fear amongst people. People will start having a very mob mentality. Mob, M-O-B, mob mentality. They will try to somehow protect themselves. Unwantedly, there will be some kind of fighting and riot-like situations happening. Understand? So to prevent misinformation and disinformation campaigns also, internet shutdowns can be done. To prevent or to contain communal clashes. This is what they did in Rajasthan right now. They felt that they could be a communal clash, so they shut down the internet. Now coming into the impact of internet shutdown. Now here is the point. We can't shut down the internet, but the first point is there is a lot of economic loss that will come as part of internet shutdown. Why? Because see, every single day there is a lot of financial transactions that are happening on the internet. Your GPay, PhonePe, Paytm, all these transactions happen through via your internet. So according to a certain report by top 10 VPN, it has been said that in the totally itself in the world, when internet gets shut down, it will lead to a loss of almost 26.63 billion. In India, it will lead to a loss of almost 583 million each and every time internet gets shut down. So the economic loss is huge. Next thing comes to violation of fundamental rights. Now you have to understand, we might say, okay, it is a reasonable restriction, but the fact is, if at all a government of a day wants to just shut down all internet without proper cause, then what is going to happen? Freedom of speech and expression will get affected. Freedom to practice any profession over the medium will get affected. Why is the profession being brought into over here? Ideally, at the time of Corona, most of the jobs got converted into work from home. At that point, you needed internet service in most of the places. Now what has happened is, when the job is happening via the internet, if the government is going for internet shutdown, and when you are going and telling to your manager, see, I do not have internet, I cannot work, so the manager will probably be like, you do one thing, you sit at home, we will get someone who has proper internet. So a person's right to opportunities, right to profession, practice any profession, is also getting affected when internet is not there. So because of this also, this is a problem. So which is the article? Article 19(1)(a) is the freedom of speech and expression. Article 19(1)(g) is the practice of profession. Again, I must tell you, in the Anuradha Basin judgment, though it said that, okay, there is reasonable restriction, they clearly noticed, okay, at times it might lead to a restriction on the freedom of speech and profession. But beyond that, the judgment said that even if it is happening like that, we have to go forward with internet shutdown if it is affecting the security of the country. Then coming on to the next fact, impacts on human development. Some of you were asking in a very clear manner over here. You were telling about how education would have happened. Imagine the condition of the students who are there in the areas where internet got shut down and most of the education was happening on online platforms. How would they have been able to access this? They would not have. Ideally for them, they are lagging behind their counterparts by maybe 1 or 2 years. Take the example of JNK, for example. For almost 522 days, if internet is not there, all the other classmates or schoolmates of theirs who are in other areas, who are following that same syllabus, they would have completed all that course through the internet which is there. They will not be accessing it. So they are lagging behind it. So this will lead to a impact on human development. Okay. Then the final thing is, when internet gets shut down, this is from an ethics point of view, guys, there is a trust deficit between citizens and the government. What is trust deficit? See, if I am trusting you guys, I have full faith. Earlier, when there was a technical glitch, I had full faith in you guys to say that, okay, they will be part of the class. They will not leave and go. That is the trust I have with you. Okay, similarly, the citizens and the government have a trust between each other. The citizens feel that the government will not try to overpower them, and the government feels that the citizens will be in their best behavior and the citizens will not try to misuse that service that is provided to them. This is the trust that both of them should have. Now, when the government is going and stopping the internet, the citizen is like, hey, don't you trust us? We will not be having, or we will not be doing something that is not in a very good manner. So what happens is, the citizens feel that the government does not trust them enough. That is why internet has been shut down. Now this will create a trust deficit. Deficit means reduction in trust between the citizens and the government. Do you think it has any problem? If there is a trust deficit, what is going to happen? Tomorrow, the people will start thinking, okay, government is acting against us only. Even if they are doing something in good intention, they will not be able to get it across to the citizens. This is the problem when it comes to the trust deficit. Again, when there were recurrent internet shutdowns in India, there was a report, there was a parliamentary committee which was convened. It was convened under Shashi Tharoor MP, and the committee, which was called as a Standing Committee on Communications and Information Technology, they observed three things. First thing they said is that when internet is shut down, basically what is happening is a doctrine of tyranny. Tyranny means what? Cheating. Doctrine of some kind of a, I am taking a decision without asking you guys. Okay, so what is happening over here? They are saying that when the government is shutting the internet down, what is basically happening is they are not taking into consideration the citizens' wishes and wills. They are using their own thinking and shutting down the internet. That is the doctrine of tyranny. Next thing is, there will be loopholes, there are a lot of loopholes in the regulatory framework. I saw some of you would have were already mentioning over here. See, when you have these kind of things, you should ideally have other kind of measures whereby which the privacy of people are protected. But in our country, none of these laws are there. So on top of it, when you go and shut down internet also, this is going to lead to a lot of mistrust from the public to the citizens. So the standing committee has identified several loopholes, such as limited consultation with the people, opaque mechanisms for internet bans. See, I have come across the situation where you ask someone who's in an internet ban situation, when they come to the mainland and you're asking them, so when will you get your internet back? They don't know it. Are you having any kind of internet? They don't have information about it. So what happens is, people are not aware about what is happening to them. That cannot be an ideal scenario in a democracy. Finally, frequent use of section 144 of CRPC. Section 144 of CRPC says that if at all there is a situation where it can lead to communal riots, it can lead to some sort of a social discord. Discord means fighting amongst groups in society. You can impose a ban on the internet. Ideally, if you are going in the normal way, even if the internet ban is imposed, you have a review committee. Again, the review committee is put up by the government itself. So, for example, they are putting an internet ban on a specific place. Now, that has to go to a review committee. The review committee will be saying, okay, right, you had specific reasons to put this ban, let it be done. But when you are putting a ban through your section 144, you don't have any review committee in place. Meaning what? Here, if you want to impose a ban and nobody will come and ask you, this is what the governments will use. They will use section 144 of CRPC. What is CRPC? Criminal Procedure Code. It is the criminal law which is there in the country. They will use that and impose the internet shutdown. So, what is the way forward to all this? The way forward is a very clear thing. If at all there is a situation where there is going to be a riot-like situation, rather than shutting down all internet, because if you shut down all internet, the government cannot also not reach the message across to the citizens, right? For example, if the government wants to tell to the public, you all have to be calm, you don't have to get worried, how will they reach that message across to the public? Because there is no internet. So again, the idea is, the Department of Telecommunications have said that if at all there is a situation, you ban selective services. You ban services like Facebook, WhatsApp and Telegram for a limited number of time. And you let the people know it will be banned for so and so time. After that, we will come back on ground. This kind of a communication has to be done. Then only people will also see. Ideally, just imagine this: government is shutting down the internet. I am not feeling very good about it. So what will I do? I will try finding some method whereby which I can access the internet. But if the people are being aware, okay, we have a situation like this, everybody should act responsibly. If the government is trying to convey that, you can expect the cooperation from the side of the public also for it. Then coming into government interventions must be adaptable. It should be it should be done in a manner where the citizens are also taken into consideration. And finally, I like this quote a lot. So whenever you write your answers, this is where you can, in your conclusion, you can use this. This is a quote by a thinker called as Voltaire. How many of you heard about Voltaire? Yes, yes. Okay. So there are a lot of people, only few of you, okay, they have heard about Voltaire. The quote is like this: I might disagree with your opinion, but I am willing to give my life for your right to express it. It's a beautiful idea. It says that we both might have different opinions, but you should have the right to express your opinion. And Voltaire has said that he is ready to give his life to for that other person can express his opinion. So this is the kind of freedom of speech and expression that has to be promoted. So even if during the internet shutdown or at the time of a crisis there might be opposing views, there might be criticism, the government should have effective methods to understand that that is also a mode of freedom of speech and expression, and it has to be controlled, putting into consideration the different citizen groups which are there. Okay, so I hope this topic has been clear to you. And right now we have the poll question. It's a very simple poll question. Let's look into it, and I'll finally summarize, because I see some of you have wanted a summary of all the things. I will summarize it for you, don't worry. The question is, the Anuradha Basin versus Union of India case deals with which of the fundamental rights provided by the Indian Constitution? Freedom to practice any profession over the internet, freedom of religion, freedom against exploitation, freedom of speech and expression. Now, I want you to take a clue. Look at all the options. Only 2 of these options are correct. Okay. So, in the earlier question, we reached 85%. I'm going to start the poll right now. Okay. And let's see how many of you. I'm starting the poll. You can mark your answers now. Some of you who've asked who's Voltaire. Voltaire is a French political thinker and a philosopher. Okay. Okay, we have got the poll results. 85% of you have marked the right answer, which is option D. Let's see the leaderboard for today. Okay, let's look at this. Avneet, Kirti, Anurag, Abhishek, Alokita, all of you who have scored full answers, all the 5 polls is correct. Congratulations to all of you. I want each one of you to try being in the leaderboard. Okay, so be very careful from the next time onwards when we discuss topics. Be very sharp with your answers. So congratulations to all of you who have found yourself on the leaderboard today. Now coming into the answer over here, we clearly discussed in the Anuradha Basin judgment, it was freedom to practice any profession and freedom of speech and expression. It did not have anything to do with the other 2 things. So the answer to this question is 1 and 4 only. The answer is D. Now coming into the mains question regarding this. Again, this has the probability to be asked. Frequent internet shutdowns in India and across the world are posing a serious threat to the spirit of democracy and expected to have a chilling effect. What is chilling effect? Chilling effect means that what happens when you get chilled? You get frozen over, no? You get freezed over. So the idea is that when internet is shut down, it will have a freezing effect on the freedom of speech and expression. Meaning, freedom of speech and expression will not be able to flourish if internet is shut down. This is the idea. So remember this word, chilling effect. Okay. Critically analyze the statement in the light of the Office of United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights report on internet shutdowns. Fairly simple question. I hope you guys will write. So today we have discussed 4 major topics. Starting off from below, we had topics related to the internet shutdown. We discussed UN conference regarding the oceans, the poem platform which was there, the Hong Kong related issue which was there, and the Title 9 which was there. So 5 topics we've discussed. I hope it is clear. Now we are going on to the questions which you have put up for me. Okay. Nivedita has asked, ma'am, why Hong Kong is not trying to defend China? Nivedita, Hong Kong has been trying to defend against China. There has been revolutions called as the Umbrella Revolution and all, where they are putting all their effort to defend against China. But you know what happens is, China is already trying to find the loopholes in the agreement, and they are trying to somehow usurp Hong Kong as a whole. So China is defending, and Hong Kong is defending, and Hong Kong has the support of almost all the international community when it comes to the Chinese issue. Okay, so they are trying to defend. Prachi has asked, please explain VPN. Okay, it's very clear. Ideally, Prachi, right now, I'm assuming you are from Mumbai maybe. Okay, so when you access this service which is there, if I want to check from where you have accessed, it will be showing from Mumbai. Okay, now if the government is planning to ban internet, it is not going to ban internet for all of India, right? It might be banning from Mumbai. So now from Mumbai, if I am trying to access your Facebook which is there, Facebook will see, when the government puts a ban, they will inform all the social media platforms. They'll be like, okay, from this area, if somebody is trying to access your service, please stop it. So Facebook is now seeing, okay, from Mumbai, if someone is accessing, we will stop it. So now what is my trick? Only if they know I am accessing from Mumbai, will they understand and stop my service, right? So instead of that, what I do is, I take up this service which is called as VPN, which is your virtual protected network which is there. If you even looked in your phone, you have apps which provide VPN. When you access VPN, you are able to access the internet. See, internet is what? Internet is basically your bandwidth which is all over there. So I need not always access the VPN or the internet which is there in the Indian circle itself. I can access a protected network or private network given by some other country. So when I'm going into this app, I can select what VPN I want. Maybe I'm taking the VPN of Singapore. Now when I take the VPN of Singapore, what is happening is, now when they are trying to look at my location, it will not be shown as Mumbai. Why? Because I have accessed the internet using VPN of Singapore. Now my location will be shown as Singapore to the Facebook people. So now will they ban my internet? No, they will be giving me access to it. This is why I said, if there is social media ban, you can circumvent it using your VPN. Is it clear now? Not only Prachi, a lot of you had asked questions about VPN. So I hope that is clear to all of you. Is it clear? If it's clear, you can just raise your hands or say yes. Jairam has asked, what is the Indian government's view on LGBTQ? See, very recently you had certain judgments, which is the Puttaswamy judgment and the Nalsa judgment. Based on all this, now it is being assured that even the LGBTQ community have to be given equal rights when it comes to employment, when it comes to reservation and so on. But what is the problem? On the ground level, the implementation of this judgment is not yet put into practice. Okay, so the government's view is not what we have to take into consideration. The judiciary has already mentioned that LGBTQ community has to be treated equally. They should not be discriminated on any grounds. Now for example, Kerala state government has taken huge strides. They have given reservation of transgender people into government jobs. Now it is up to each and every government jobs and the national government to take up measures to actually promote the equality of LGBTQ community. Okay, Jairam, I hope that has cleared your doubt. So now let's, Kajal has asked, National security law, can you please explain once more? Sure, Kajal. National security law basically means that in China, this is a law by China. Okay. China imposed this law on Hong Kong saying that our national security, because it is one country, two systems, meaning for national security and all, China's law will be important. They said that there are people in your Hong Kong who are trying to create some bad impression about the country. They are involved in anti-national activities. So now we have to punish them. To do this, China bought a national security law. But the problem is, using this national security law, the people that China has tried to put into jail are the opposition party members, the ruling party members, the journalists over there, the social media influencers over there. So anybody who's very vocal and who's trying to defend Hong Kong's rights are put into jail using the national security law. Is it clear, Kajal? I hope it is clear. Let's see some other questions which are there. How is GSLV different from PSLV? One question by Kraft over here. Kraft here, PSLV puts satellites into the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, which is a low Earth orbit. For example, if you have the Earth, your polar orbits will be here. GSLV puts it into geostationary and geosynchronous orbits, which is almost at a distance of 36,000 kilometers from the Earth's surface. Okay, so that is the difference between this. Next thing is, Karan has asked me how to put a ban on social media if there is the user is using VPN. This is why I said, Karan, the VPN is a shortcut. Okay, so if the VPN also has to be banned, that will be like a huge issue, because there are a lot of servers that use VPN. Even internally, between government offices, when they want to communicate, they use VPN services. So if you are banning VPN, it will be an issue for even the government. So you do not see an issue where the VPN might be banned. Anika has asked, if there is VPN, then what is the purpose of internet cut? Anika, the problem here is, see, VPN can be used only when in the case of the social media bans. If the entire internet of a place is shut down, okay, then you can clearly understand that even in this case, for example, the entire Mumbai or entire Rajasthan, it is shut down. So you will ensure, the government will ensure that there is no amount of any kind of activity which is happening on the internet will not work. So even to access the VPN, you need internet. I'm going on telling you, VPN can be accessed through an app. So what happens is, if a social media platform is banned, like Facebook, you have other internet service. So using that internet service, I can access VPN. But if the complete internet is banned, how can I even access VPN? Understand, Anika? Kunal has said, you didn't take my name. I got 50. Kunal, I'm taking your name right now. Congrats on getting all the 5 answers correct. Okay. Opaque mechanism for internet ban means you do not see, I am doing something, but I am not telling it to you in a proper manner. For example, the government is banning internet, but they are not letting the people know when the internet will be back. What all services can you use? If any other method is possible for you to access your job and your education or anything, nothing is being told to the citizens. The citizens are basically very confused. So this creates some kind of fear amongst them. Understand? So this is the opaque mechanism. Opaque means the government is not very open about telling what exactly is happening. Okay. Deepak has asked, can you explain doctrine of tyranny? Tyranny means some kind of, it is a negative word. Okay. It is commonly associated with distrust, cheating, that kind of a word. Okay. Doctrine of tyranny basically means that the government takes decisions for the people without consulting them. Okay. And the decisions that they take, the impact of the decisions are faced by the people itself. If the internet is shut down, it is not the government who is suffering. It is the people who are suffering. So, Shashi, in the report, it was mentioned that by doing so, the government is promoting a doctrine of tyranny. Tyranny means that it is acting on its own wish and will. and not considering the people's needs. Okay, so I hope that is clear. Karthik has asked, please take your question. Karthik, can you please repeat your question, because there are a lot of questions coming in. What exactly is the question Karthik had put? Let me see. Karthik has asked, if we are using VPN of Singapore and using Facebook ban, will not open because they are using two systems. One is IP address and also one country is using it. So is it of now? Your question is not very clear, Karthik. So I'm trying to understand this. Your question is, the idea is basically that, okay, if there is a Facebook ban, will it not open because they use two system? One is IP address. See, no. See, the idea is, Karthik, when you use VPN, your IP address is masked. Your original IP address will not be shown. That is how Facebook is able to give you access. Understand? So original IP address will not be shown. It will be masked because you're using a virtual private network. I hope that was the doubt. Okay. Shanta has mentioned, my friends played PUBG even when the government banned PUBG. Now, Shanta, you know how they did it. Okay. Okay, Anjali has asked a question. Does space debris have the ownership of the same country under the international law? Like India can use any space debris. Okay, Anjali, what happens is space is part of the global commons which are there. Global commons, the idea of global commons is that there are some resources which are common to the entire world. So ideally, you right now do not have any proper convention that is covering the space debris which is there. So as of now, if you look at it, any space junk which is out there, India can take it and make it its own poem platform which is there. Okay, but ideally in the coming eras they might make conventions even for this. Why? Because there is a lot of space junk getting created in the space, and somebody should take responsibility to start cleaning it also, right? So because of this, in the future conventions might happen, but right now the international law which is there says that space is a global common. Global common. And because space is a global common, you will see that any resource which is there can be utilized by any private company, any nation which is out there. Okay? Simran has asked, by not giving a woman the right to abortion, isn't the SC violating my right over my body? Yes, Simran, very, very true. This is exactly the problem. See, when it comes to Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act in India, there is no complete autonomy given to a woman's bodily autonomy which is there. Understand, the right of my body is my choice, right? But that is not granted by the Supreme Court. So clearly this is against the idea of bodily integrity which is there. Okay, Simran? Kapil has asked, ma'am, does internet shut down for government exams against the Supreme Court judgment? Okay, Kapil, your question is not clear in a good manner. Does internet shut down for government exams against SC judgment of Anuradha Basin case? Kapil, doubt is not very clear, so I'm just going to assume that what you have asked is the fact that, okay, at times maybe in the case of the SC judgment, yeah, in the case of the SC judgment, what you say, the Anuradha Basin case, what was mentioned is internet can be shut down if it is necessary, and if it is, even if it is shut down, it is not like it is against the freedom of speech and expression. It is going to be something that is done for promoting or for like some kind of a reasonable restriction on the freedom of speech and expression. When you study polity, you must have studied under fundamental rights. There are few what you can say as reasonable restrictions which are there. So they are saying in the Anuradha Basin case, this internet shutdown is also like a reasonable restriction for the freedom of speech and expression. Okay. So I think a lot of your questions have been answered, and even by the what you say, So what you say, even by the SMEs have answered all of your questions, I believe. We are crossing the time limit at this point. I am very, very happy that you all have engaged so well despite all the technical glitches. You all have engaged so well with the session. I hope all the issues mentioned to you are clear to you, and even the small doubts you have. Some of you asked me, is the US or China the better country? That is not going to be a question that a UPSC aspirant needs to answer. So I have left aside certain questions like that, but I hope you all understand the spirit behind it. Now I hope to see you again tomorrow, like in the coming days, whenever we do have the discussions. I hope to see you again. So until then, have a good night, happy learning. Try writing the answers which are there. I hope that all of you will attempt the answers, and I hope all of you had a very, very productive session tonight. Okay, so I hope to see you again in the coming weeks. Until then, good night.